everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. This is the Malizia Vendée Globe live show. I'm your host, Holly Cova. I am the Malizia team director, and we are going to be bringing you every week, normally on Mondays at 6 p.m., all of the behind the scenes from the race. We will be having lots of different guests. We'll be letting you know how Boris is, what's going on, and bringing you closer to all the action. So this week, I am joined by our co-skipper, Will Harris, who is joining us from France. Will has been with the team since 2019 and he sailed all of the ocean race with Team Malizia. So he knows the boat, I would say, almost better than anyone. Thanks for joining us, Will.
No, thanks for having us. I'm very excited to be here and hopefully giving everyone watching us a good insight into what's going on in the Vendée Globe.
Thanks. And we are also joined by Cole Brauer, who has been with the team, mentoring under Boris for the last months. And so Cole was one of the last people on board with Boris and obviously comes with a very extensive history in ocean racing. She is the fastest person around the world on a class 40 boat and also the first American woman to sail solo around the world. So thank you so much for joining us, Cole.
Thank you for having me. This is going to be awesome.
So we are going to start with a little hang up from the podcast of Rosie and Boris during the ocean race. I would like to know, guys, starting with Cole, how do you feel at the moment from 1 to 10 and why?
So I think right now I am a 10. I'm riding on a severe high from being able to ride out on the channel with Boris, and that was such an amazing opportunity. So thank you to Boris for really going out of his way and being like, nope, like I want her to be able to experience this, and that's kind of what a mentor is for. But he didn't have to do that, because that was his day. And for him to let me join is amazing. And I cried like a small child pretty much all the way through the channel. So
amazing. And Will, how about you?
Yeah, it's funny to be asked this question from this side. Normally it would be Rosie asking me when I was coming on watch during the ocean race. But no, right now for me, I'm a solid 9. I'd say it's been a really good night on the tracker, good night and day on the tracker for Boris. He's climbed up about 30 places at the moment. So I'm very happy to see that after what was a very light wind and challenging start. So it's a good day today.
Perfect. I think I'm sitting on about an 8 because I didn't get very much sleep last night and I'm just back home now, but also very, very happy when I saw the tracker earlier today.
I think we're all catching up from the craziness of the last few weeks at the start. It was just absolutely incredible out there. So.
Yeah, it's been really full on. So for those of you that have been following, we have had a very intense run up to this race. I mean, we've had partner events, farewell parties. Will has been on it with the weather, doing lots of briefings, but it was really an incredible time. So you guys actually spent more time, I think, with Boris than almost anyone else before the start of the race. And Will, what sort of things were you doing together? What was the feeling like for you in those kind of 3 days before the start?
Yeah, it's probably my favorite part of this whole preparation period. You know, that those last few days we get to actually start looking at the weather and checking out what the first few days of the race is going to be like. And both Boris and Cole, we were all sat down every morning in the 5 days before the start of the race, and we would meet Boris for a coffee, and we'd almost call it a coffee and routing sessions. We would sit together, have a look at the weather, and just sort of chat through the things that is going through Boris's mind, because at the end of the day, it's about prepping the skipper for the start. We're kind of trying to give him, or sort of my job is to try and make him feel as prepped as possible, as ready as possible in terms of the performance and the weather side. And so with Cole, we were kind of sitting there and at his house and going through the various things. But alongside that, there's all sorts of briefings. There's final bits of things to put on the boat, little presents, of course. That's always the last things that go on. Everyone wants to bring some presents and things like this. So it's been a very intense few days, but everything's gone perfectly. He's had a great start. And I think that's thanks to all the preparation that the team, both on the commercial side and the tech side, has been working on these past weeks and months.
Definitely. And talking about preparing, Cole, I know that Boris was asking you actually for advice because obviously you did 130 days alone around the world.
Yeah.
Crazy, to be honest. But and you were giving Boris some tips, right, about how to survive his Vendée Globe.
Yeah, I think because his race will probably be around 80 days, if not less than 80 days. And with my race, we kind of were a range between 120 and 160, not really knowing, mostly because I had never done it before and I had never done it on a class 40. And I think for me, because I had so much time to actually figure out what worked, what didn't work, and a lot of times what worked was being really comfortable, and that's not really this normal, the traditional like professional sailor way is not to be comfortable. You know, it's just to kind of push through that wall and just go, okay, I'm just gonna be wet for that time and deal with, you know, infections and things and just as they come. And so when Boris asked me, you know, how did you manage that? And I came out still like quite healthy and happy and, you know, joyful from the moment. It it was just trying to get him to buy things off Amazon. To be honest, like, and you know, we no advertisement to them or anything, but it was, I sent him pretty much everything that I bought that was comfortable, which we always thought was going to be a secondary thing, and I used them profusely. Heated blankets, I had 2 heated blankets, one for just a backup, and I loved that heated blanket. When I was freezing cold, I'd get inside my little blanket afterwards and watch a movie and, you know, put your big headphones on and disappear. And telling Boris this, he was like shocked that people do that. And I was like, well, you know, you can try it. And once you get him into the mindset, it ended up being, I think he really grabbed on to the comfort idea.
Well, I think he had a whole new wardrobe when I saw him in Le
Yeah,
Sable
he did.
d'Olonne. He opens the door with a pair of UGG boots on and a big furry jumper. So I think he's really taking your advice on board, Cole, for sure.
I think we've like basically it's Cole, like Boris is kind of Cole now, no? He's a bit morphed into you, Cole, with the pink
Yeah, the
earphones
pink
and
headphones. Yeah,
super
I think
nice.
it's all into the comfort level of things. And I think like when he was texting me, he was so humble about it. You know, it's not like he was like, "What'd you do?" It was like, "I can't believe what you've done," you know, for that period of time, because it's so much longer than, you know, the Vendée. And then he was like, "How do you change your mentality when, you know, when things are going awry?" And, you know, I told him, you know, you have to listen to music, no matter what it is, because if you're stuck in your head and you can't get your inner mind to be quiet, you need to figure out a different way. And the slamming into, you know, waves and stuff doesn't really quiet it anymore.
Definitely. Definitely. No, well, I think he took a lot of your advice on board, so that's super nice. I'm sure we're going to be seeing some of that repeat over the next week. So you touched on it briefly, but both of you were on board obviously for the channel, and that is like a pretty insane experience. The Vendée Globe is renowned for the channel with people lining it, like hundreds of thousands of people. Will, for you, it's actually the second time you've done that, but of course in 2020 when we were doing the last Vendée Globe, it was a totally different experience because of COVID. So yeah, what was it like this time for you, Will, and how did it compare?
Yeah, I mean, last time it was full lockdown on the channel. Last time it was people weren't allowed to be lining the sides of the channel, and they could only wave from the people who were lucky enough to have apartments either side of the channel. So
Mm.
wow, I mean, like this time it was just unbelievable seeing the crowds coming out, and you're not really sure what to expect until we actually left the dock. But I kind of start hearing stories now that people were coming out from about 2 or 3 a.m. They were climbing on the rocks, they were climbing in various different places, setting up their banners, all just to see the boats leaving the channel over sort of a 2 3 hour period. And yeah, I kind of remember coming out that first part of the channel and turning the corner, and you see the crowds, they're just everywhere. And yeah, I mean, it's just incredible how many people want to follow these skippers and follow the race. And a very emotional moment for sure, and something that I think I'll never forget, to see that and to see all the crowds cheering like they were, and really a very special experience coming out the channel there.
Yeah, and I saw actually Cole posted yesterday your very emotional Instagram post, and for you it was, I guess, a dream come true if I read that post.
Yeah, it was an absolute dream come true. And I I got quite emotional on the boat, and I made sure that I thought that I could be quite strong because, like, as a sailor, you know, we're like, okay, getting on a boat, leaving a channel, like, you know, that's normal. And I didn't understand that as soon as we turned the corner away from the dock, because there was some people lined up, you know, you could see maybe like 20 to 40 people. And I was like, yeah, that seems appropriate. And then when we turned the corner, and it was like birds, but like a million of birds just sitting and cheering, and the noise is almost deafening. Yeah, it's hard not to just burst into tears in absolute shock, because in America this doesn't exist. Like maybe at a Taylor Swift concert, but not at a sailing event or a boating event. And I was just, yeah, in awe of how many people who probably don't sail or don't know anything about sailing other than this event came out from all different places around the world. I mean, my partner was walking to the channel at like 7 a.m, and people were walking around with ladders, like because they already knew that they were late. I mean, people were camping out the night before. I got definitely like the first class service of being on the boat. But I almost thought about what it would have been like to sit there while the crowds were actually chanting from each side of the channel and singing. I mean, it gives me goosebumps just thinking about how passionate that people really can be. And it's almost like welcoming people to war. Like that's what it kind of like relates in history to me, is like, you know, we're so proud of you, like go and conquer the world and come back and we will welcome you back. It's quite a magical moment. So yeah, I'm still very much on a high from that moment.
Yeah, it's an incredible spectacle to see, honestly. And for me as well, because last time there was no one really, and it was like so strict. So like Will said, it's so nice that Boris gets to experience that as well the second time round, I think. You guys were both actually on board Cole until the last 30 minutes, Will until the last 5 minutes, I think. So Cole, what were you, I think you both had different roles during that time, but Cole, what were you doing in that kind of 2 or 3 hours from dock off to the 30 minutes before?
Role specifically was to kind of distract Boris from the normal mentality of what happens, because it's actually quite interesting. Most races that you go, and Will, you can correct me, is that most races that you go, you leave the dock, you go to the start, and you start, and you can show up, you know, an hour before or whatnot, and you just go. And this is very different. You leave the dock and you parade through all of these people, and you do this entire performance. It's amazing. But you leave it really, really early. We left the dock at 8:33 in the morning.
Yeah.
I remember because our entire schedule was by the minute.
Yeah.
And then you get through the entire channel, and then you still have like 3 hours or something, four like 2.5, 3 hours until the start of the race. And so I can't even imagine what the other sailors were doing while we were having fun. Like we were doing everything that we could to just distract Boris from, you know, how intense that this was about to be. I mean, I think it's the best way you can do it, is we were telling stories that we definitely could never repeat. And and we were having,
right?
and we were bouncing around and doing cartwheels and juggling and having a great time. And, you know, Boris was showing us the inside of the boat on a more like intimate level of like, okay, well, this is where I'm going to sleep and this is where I'm going to eat and all this stuff. And just the distraction from I'm about to enter one of the most competitive races in the world. We're having fun with my friends and having a great time. Like we're playing Frank Sinatra and we're dancing, you know, it was a great time. And I think that is completely invaluable and we were even talking about, I wonder what the other skippers are doing. Do you think that they're like panicking about weather or, you know, what we're going to do or how the start's going to be? And Boris is literally like, we're FaceTiming his friends who are on the rib in the restriction zone, you know, saying goodbye. And it wasn't like a goodbye, like crying. It was a goodbye, I'll see you soon, like cheers. It was quite a very different moment than I was expecting.
I think it's also different, right? Like you said, for different sailors, right? Some are probably like, they just don't even want to look at anyone else. But for Boris, I think easing that tension, like having a laugh, smiling, that's what helps him probably. I think that's my feeling of it. And I think you did a great job at that, Cole.
Yeah, I can do that. That's easy.
And Will, you were on till literally 5 minutes before the start. And I think one of the nice things I heard in an interview by Boris this week was he said, yeah, I just hand over to Will as soon as I step on the boat and we dock off. Will is in charge until 5 minutes before the start, and I trust him. I mean, that's a lot of pressure, no, Will? How did that feel for you, and what were you doing?
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly. It's you know, at the final few hours before the start is really the key part, or sort of my moment to shine, I guess, to really try and get Boris the best and safest start possible. You know, we've got to remember it's the Vendée Globe. It's 80 days. We're not trying to do like in the America's Cup and be 5 meters away from the line. We're trying to get a start safely, and but also he wants to be fairly up the front, you know, and I think we managed to do that spot on in the end, but. I think firstly coming out the channel, it was after we'd done a bit of entertainment. I think the juggling and the handstands really got the crowd going. But
we can show a little clip of the channel if you want. 1 second.
Yeah, okay. Just the number of people was incredible. Yeah, super emotional moment for Boris and the team. But you know, I think like Cole says, it's Boris needs to be feeling relaxed and fresh, and you know, he was having a good time on board, just feeling more relaxed. And in that time, I'm prepping for the start as if I was about to cross the start line as a sailor. I'm using my energy in order to prep the start, because you're still allowed to up until 4 minutes before the start. We can really help Boris with everything. And, you know, the rules are that I have to jump off before 5 minutes. So in the hours before, I was doing things like downloading the weather, running the final routings. I was lining up the boat to ping the positions of the start line. So it's saved in our navigation software, and it will sort of give a countdown of the time and distance for Boris. And then basically my plan was to be at the southern end of the line and to be about 300 meters back with about 6 minutes to go. So we ended up in that position. We managed to get the team off, and then I did a final unfurl of the sail. You know, I'm trying to use my energy as well, so I did the final unfurl, and then sort of looked at the timer and realized, right, 5 minutes 30, I've got 30 seconds to get off the boat. So even though there's only 3 knots of wind, I had to jump straight off the back. But
we actually have a video of that, Will. Hang on. We have your GoPro cam here.
Yes, yeah. Chestnut.
Okay, you're pretty much max trim there. Right, I'm gonna say goodbye now, if that's all right.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, nice amazing work. Do whatever you can, and we'll be waiting for you at the finish, huh?
We chat a lot on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, see you later.
It felt hectic. I don't know. I felt stressed.
It was extremely stressful. It was a full-on start, even though there's only 3 or 4 knots of wind. You know, we were really like trying to get right in front of the start line in the right spot, and you know, it all went really well. With Boris and I have been working together on this for 5 years now, since the last Vendée Globe. So I think we've got it dialed down to a T. And he literally grabbed the tiller off me at 6 minutes. I unfurled the sail and then sort of said a quick goodbye, and that was it.
You flew off the boat.
exactly, jumped off the back of the boat. So no, it all went really well, and it was a fantastic start, exactly what we hoped for.
I mean, just after that though, we had tech issue, right? So I have a video of that in a second. But we had this technical issue, which I got texted about, and I was like, oh God, no. But of course, with your help, Boris managed to fix it. But maybe we watch the video quickly for those who have not seen that yet.
Yeah.
And I already got a little tech challenge. I had to change this while I was stopped. Luckily, the wind just came 5 minutes after I'd finished the job. The toolbox is still open. Here, this is where it sits. This is steering the boat. We have 2 of these. And for some reason, it had a problem. We with a lot of phone calls with the electronics people, and they gave me great assistant, and we swapped that thing over.
So, Will, we have so many questions from people about whether it's fixed, whether can it be fixed, how bad was the issue. So maybe you can just wrap all that up for us.
Exactly. So literally 20 minutes after the start, Boris sort of notified the tech team that he was having an issue with the autopilot ram not engaging the tiller, and that's kind of a solo sailor's worst nightmare. I'm sure Cole knows a lot about this as well, but that's your crewmate right there. He's the one who's steering the boat, and to have that fail 10 minutes after the start, I think the whole tech team's face just went white. And it was we're still not exactly sure of the finer details. It's really hard because Boris is solo on board at this point. We can't, we're not allowed to jump on board. We're not allowed to help him out in any way in that sense. So we kind of figured that there's something wrong with the actual ram. So it's the actual mechanical unit that is pushing the tiller back and forth. And it seems like this unit was faulty, or it had some sort of problem inside. And we had 3 on board in total. We have 1 in the spares, so he was able to quickly replace that before the wind picked up. It's not a big job to change. It only takes a few minutes. It's a quick plug. It's pulling out 2 pins at either end. But luckily, it was when there was not much wind, because as soon as the boat's moving fast, you have to stop the boat. You have to pull down the sails in order to do it. And because he had no wind in that moment, he was able to quickly change it. And luckily, the spare one is what we used in the ocean race and has been fully serviced and is ready to go. So he's back up and running with 2 autopilot rams. And ideally he'll fix this one that's broken. We've got spare pieces for it on board, and he'll be able to repair that, so that if he was to break these 2 as well, which is very, very unlikely, he has another one as well. So all's good. Everything's back normal and up and running, and hopefully it can be sort of like our little bit of bad luck, so that it gives us good luck for the rest of the race. But
I like that thinking. Well, I like that thinking.
Yeah.
So we saw yesterday a few videos from Boris, one talking to his new pet spider that was found a stowaway on board, and also Boris talking about emotions of leaving the land, and you could hear a little bit the nostalgia in his voice. I'm not going to play them now, but I remember, Cole, you telling me that for you the beginning is the hardest. So what do you think the feeling is there for Boris, and what were you experiencing when you went on such a long race?
Yeah, it's when you're surrounded by such a big team. I mean, your team is twice as big as what my team was, and all of a sudden, you have dinners together, you have drinks, you live together, you do everything together, and then it's immediate. There's no weaning off period. It's just shoving you out into the middle of the ocean and having you compete at the highest level. And so it can be quite detrimental to your own mental health, and nobody really talks about it because, normally people forget about it after the first 5 days or so when you're already, set in. But I relate it to actually like going to jail. And maybe that's not the most politically correct way to say it, and I haven't been to jail, promise. But when you hear like testimonies of people who have gone to jail, it's usually like 5 days to 30 days that it normally takes when you're in isolation of some sorts. And you feel like the world is against you, no matter what it is. And then as you're getting out of that, out of that mindset, the same way that you would be getting out of, let's say the North Atlantic, which can be incredibly brutal to people, and you start getting into the trades, it can feel so much better. And all of a sudden you're like, okay, the world's not against me anymore, and I can fix everything. And you become almost a little bit more superhuman, where in the beginning you feel quite fragile, and even the smallest little thing could end your entire world in the North Atlantic. Like having the autopilot issue could have really messed with Boris's mental health. But I think because it happened in light air, as you said, he didn't have to take down the sails and watch everyone sail by him. He was actually really lucky that this happened when it did, and that he knows how to fix it. And he's got a proper team behind him that's like, don't worry, you got this, it's done. And so, yeah, the first 5 days are usually the worst. And then it's just fighting as much as possible and making sure you're eating enough and drinking enough water and, you know, taking care of your mental health. And yeah, so I think he's going to do fine from here on out. If he's getting the kinks out now, I'm not worried about him at all.
Definitely. We have the same. We're always like, leave him a bit alone the first days and then he can get into the flow.
Yeah.
Talking about placing and routing and where he is. So I spoke to him yesterday on video call, and the Starlink is amazing, to be honest. The picture's incredible. And he was telling me like, oh my God, my ranking is so bad. And he was like, I think at that point in 40th place out of 40 boats. So I don't think that's ever happened to him before. Obviously now he's in a much better place. But Will, maybe you can explain to us a bit like what happened, why he was in that place, just for the viewers at home.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's been a really good night for Boris. Last night especially. I think it's that first moment in the race. We kind of identified this before the start of going around Cape Finisterre, around the northwestern point of Spain. It's quite notoriously very windy, very wavy, and it was going to be quite a challenging one in the first 48 hours of the race, because they've got this really strong northeasterly wind which is sort of blowing around the corner, and it was combined with some swell coming in from the west and the wind waves, so making a really messy sea state. As we know, Malizia is fantastic in this sea state, and Boris really showed that. You know, he really showed that he's managed to gain 30 places or so. He's in 9th at the moment. He was in 39th yesterday, and it's a really good sign going ahead. You know, if he's able to gain that many miles, I've had a big smile on my face all day, I think, and I hope Boris has too. And basically, he chose to go outside the TSS. He chose to go to the northern side and actually reduce his maneuvers. So a lot of the other boats did quite a few more maneuvers. And, you know, as you can imagine with these boats, every time you jibe or tack, you have to slow the boat down. You have to pull the foils out. You have to pull the sails to the other side of the boat. Sometimes move all this stack, 800 kilos of equipment, from one side to the other. It's about a half an hour procedure where the boat is going only 5 to 10 knots, when normally the boat can be doing 25 knots. And I think Boris made a really smart choice there of just reducing his maneuvers and sailing fast. And you can see that now he's really worked his way up the tracker, which is cool to see.
Definitely. He likes a comeback as well, Boris. Huh?
Exactly. Yeah.
Gets people excited.
Yeah.
And I think we have a brief weather with Will as well. For people joining, Will is going to talk to us about the future, what the weather looks like. But we have to focus on the race as a whole. We cannot just focus on Boris due to the race rules being more clearly defined now. So Will will give us a little look with the map at what that's going to look like in the next days.
Okay, I'm just going to share my screen now. Hopefully everyone can see that at home. Can you see it?
Yeah, we see it.
Perfect. All right. So I'm going to just keep it very brief, but I want to talk a bit about the synoptic situation firstly, because that's really defining what the wind is doing. So this is midday today. We've got the fleet roughly where this red dot is in the south, and that northeasterly flow, like I was talking about, is going like this around the corner of Finisterre, and that's driven by the high pressure up over Ireland, allowing the wind to circulate around it, and it's quite an intense high pressure, and it's driven in between the low over here, and there's also a little low over Africa. You can't really see it in this synoptic image, but that's driving this strong wind. If we go through to Thursday, so this is in 36 hours time, that low pressure over North Africa is really intensified. I mean, it's actually moved a little bit further west to its normal position. It's kind of blocking this straight south route. But this flow here around the high pressure is still really strong. So we're probably going to see the fleet having to work their way a little bit further west and down towards the Canary Islands. So if we look at the track at what that means, so kind of got two bunches in the fleet at the moment. We've got this sort of southeastern group over here with sort of the leaders at the moment. And we've got a few boats up over here and one boat way out in the west, Nico Lundven. And really, he's still in that strong acceleration, getting quite strong northeasterly winds, whereas these boats in the south, they've got a northerly wind. And so what that means for the routing is these boats in the south, they're probably going to get lifted. The wind's going to be slowly turning to the left, and they're going to want to jibe and work out towards the west to avoid the light winds in the center of the low over here, whereas Nico and the boats in the west, they're going to be able to sail a much more direct route to the south. However, he's a lot further north at the moment. He's more than 180 miles behind this eastern pack, so he's going to have to do some very fast sailing to catch up with them. But if we look at the routings on Thursday, so 36 hours from now, we can see it's looking very close between the two packs. And the next challenge is going to be for the fleet to get in this corridor between the high pressure over here in the west, and you've got the center of the low over here, but it's the light winds is really extending over here, and in order to get down into the trade winds, they're going to have to jibe back and forth past the Canary Islands and play the shifts basically. So it's nice and straightforward for now, but later on it's really looking challenging for them.
Thank you very much for that, Will. Super
Hopefully that's clear.
We actually have a question in the chat from someone called Britt. So Britt asks, does Boris get all the information from you during the race, or is that forbidden? So Will, maybe you can answer that one.
Yeah, very good question. It's a very hot topic for us at the moment. It's very important that we do not give any weather, strategy, performance advice at all to Boris. So I can't share anything with him now that the race has started. So I have to keep it very careful. Everything we speak about with Boris, we're allowed to chat. We're allowed to talk about any technical problems on board, but anything to do with weather, strategy, and performance, I can't speak to him at all. We have to have given him everything on board beforehand. So he's got all the documents and information he needs on board the boat already.
Exactly. And Cole, maybe one you can answer. Do skippers reduce their sails before the night? This is from Andreas, to be safe, or do they keep racing full throttle through the dark?
So that's, yes. So it is a little controversial, I think, for some people who always say that, you have to keep watch. And in this type of racing, it is full throttle all the way around the planet. We don't typically reduce sail unless it's valid to do so. So if it was blowing, 40 knots or something like it will be, then of course, like there is sail charts that then tell you, okay, well, this doesn't feel comfortable and it's not up to the boat's like optimal racing conditions, and then we need to actually make it optimal by reducing sail. And sometimes that happens in the middle of the day, and sometimes that happens at night. But sail change can happen 24/7, and it doesn't matter what time it is. So they are racing at 100% the best that they can do at solo. So, which is still very different than racing at crewed, where crewed everyone's racing at 100%. But a solo sailor, maybe, because they have to sleep and they have to, eat and do other things, they're typically, I would say, racing between like 85% of what probably a fully crewed boat that is just nonstop on shifts at 100%. So yes, they are full throttle through the night.
And we have a question about sleep. So I actually spoke to Boris a few times yesterday and today, and he's definitely finding it harder to get into the sleep rhythm, but that's honestly for him quite normal at the beginning. He finds it, you've got so much tension in your body, you've done this amazing start. So he will be getting some sleep, definitely, but he sleeps in little blocks. So sometimes only 20 minutes at a time, 15 minutes at a time, and then checking. But yeah, we hope he's getting a bit more sleep in the next days. But he's definitely, he needs a bit more.
Holly, I have a question for you. How does it feel? How does it feel to be having said goodbye to Boris for the second time now, having been part of the team since 2018? You've been really Boris's right-hand woman throughout the project, and it's a big deal to be saying goodbye to him for this. But yeah, how does it feel?
It's honestly only just sinking in now, which I know sounds really weird because I watched him leave. But like, it is one of those things where you plan this for so long, and you talk about it all the time, and it's like this big dream that we have this team and we do this thing, and now he's gone. I'm like, oh, it's weird. Like, and he calls me on the video, and I'm like, oh, you're really out there. Which it is now sinking in. Now we do the show. Now we're here. But yeah, it is strange, honestly, not to just know that he's there. But it's super exciting, and I think like we have such an amazing boat, such an amazing team. I mean, yeah, I think we couldn't be in a better place. That's what it feels like for me. So very happy, but also coming to the realization at the moment. And I have another question, maybe for Will. I don't know if you know the answer, but when do you think Boris will be crossing Cape Town?
Ooh, that's a very good question. Last time it was in the last Vendée Globe. I'm going off the references from last time because we did a big analysis of the last race, of course.
Yeah.
I believe it was around the 9th of December. However, the race started a couple of days earlier. So maybe because they're a bit faster boats now, hopefully a bit faster boats, he'll be around the same time. But yeah, I think it started on the 8th of November last time. So around then, I think it's around 25 days into the race.
Okay, nice.
So it's a while to go still.
Still a while to go, exactly.
Just Cape.
Definitely. And we're going to do one more question because we're going to move on in a second. But does Boris have any treats on board for his trip around the world?
Does he have treats? Whoa.
Wow.
More treats than anyone else, I would be very
guess.
confident in saying.
Yeah, I think every single person in the team had like a present on board, and he has little like notes in his food bag of like like a quote of every day. He has advent calendar, he has
Christmas tree,
he has
Hugs.
games.
Hugs. He has his bear. He has his bear that's gone around the world with him every time.
Alfonso, the bear.
Yeah.
He has many things on board, so he definitely has treats. That was from Luke, but he definitely has lots of treats on board. And yeah, chocolate as well. So
chocolate and Haribo's his secret weakness.
And Cole and I gave him little mini alcoholic chocolates, so with a tiny bit of alcohol inside.
Yeah, just like a little bit, a little nip.
Exactly. So you don't need to worry about that. He's stocked on the treats.
Yes.
So we're going to do a tiny promo section, which also comes from the podcast, but I liked it. So the question I have for you guys is must-have item for going around the world solo. Cole first. This is the promo section. What would be your one must-have item?
I think it's changed over from like if you had asked me before I'd gone around the world, and now you ask me now. I think it's changed like 100 different times. But like I can't even get on an airplane without these things anymore. My noise canceling headphones that I have, like I left them and didn't get on the airplane with them, and then the next stop that I got to, I went and bought them because the boat, same as airplanes, same as everything, like your whole world is just slamming all the time, and just cutting out the noise, it can change your entire perspective for the day. It could be blowing 75 knots outside and like the rigging is shaking and you could be thinking the boat's going to break in half. And then you put your headphones on and listen to like soft piano music on Spotify for 9 hours. And you're like, oh, it's lovely. It's not bad. Yeah.
And what brand are they called?
I'm not sponsored by them yet.
I know, it's not an ad. I just
maybe one day. But they're the Apple AirPod Max. A lot of people don't like them because they're very heavy.
Yeah.
They are a lot heavier than the Bose, but I actually like them because they're heavy. There's something like very securing. They go straight over your ears, so they don't hurt your ears at all. And I sleep in them when I'm offshore. So
and
they
Boris
are my
has 2 pairs as well on board.
Yes, yeah. He got the fancy new ones though.
Yeah.
I'm very jealous that he got the fancy new ones.
And they're pink, aren't they?
And they're pink.
Yeah.
He is turning into Cole, to be honest. And Will, how about you?
Yeah, definitely headphones was high up on my list as well. The noise cancelling, you just need them for the types of boats now as well. But the thing that was really life-changing for me last year as well, especially in the ocean races, has been to have a pair of Crocs on board always. You and
these Crocs, I can't get over this. This is like my Uggs.
They're just fantastic. You know, they're breathable. They're easy to slip off and on, and they stop there, and they don't make your feet smell, which is really easy on board. But also walking around barefoot, you end up like there's so many things that you can like kick and stub your toe or something, or hurt your feet. So I think they're great just to have at the end of your bunk and just be able to quickly slip in and jump in the cockpit. But I was really thinking of getting Boris, because Boris has Crocs on board as well. It's actually from Boris that I first started wearing Crocs, but I was thinking of getting some of those like little gibbets where you can put like little lights, or you can put little
Oh,
frogs or little
You might
animals.
have
Yeah.
something like that on board as a
Ah,
present.
okay, so we have to wait and see. We'll have
Yeah,
to
you
wait
have to
and
wait and
see.
see.
Okay.
I thought I saw something in the group chat that showed the little headlamps for the Crocs.
Yeah,
I was wondering if someone was going to do that.
Exactly.
Headlight for Crocs for sail changes.
We have our last section, guys. That is the prize giving. So we have the chance every week to win a prize. It is very simple, but the terms and conditions are in the description of this video. But basically, the first person to put the right answer in the chat wins. And the question is, what is the name of Boris's plant that is on board? What is the name of Boris's plant that is on board? First person to write in the chat wins. Prizes will be sent at the end of the Vendée Globe, and we will contact you on YouTube directly. That is actually all we have time for, but thank you guys so much for joining us. Thank you also Dani, who has been producing this in the background. And we will join you guys next week at Monday, though, normally Mondays, at 6 p.m. CET. And we will also sometimes have our lovely guests here, but Will is, as we know, having a baby very soon. So if he's not with us next week, that might be why. And Cole is also about to sail her boat, First Light, to Australia. So she will be joining us via Starlink from the ocean to give you insights and updates, which I personally find amazing. So thank you guys.
It just worked out that way. It just really
it's
worked
cool.
out.
It's really cool. We will also have other guests joining us, though. So please tune in and like and follow on the link below if you've enjoyed this episode. Thank you so much, everybody. Ciao, ciao for now.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Are we off?
Talk?